That first round definitely was very unexpected, and unfortunately didn't get the result I wanted. I'm just only delaying the inevitable here, but let's bring on the cue card here as it's time for what unfortunately will be the last recap episode of Season 1 of... Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And as I said in the opening there, it's a little subdued mood here, but this is the last episode for recapping the Calgary Flames in Season 1 here. This is the last episode of my Calgary Flames in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. It's episode 17. And we're recapping what happened in the first round here against the Colorado Avalanche here, and unfortunately we got buried. Got snuffed out by the Avalanche, figuratively and literally here. And this first round, and I'll do a separate video on because this first round definitely had many unexpected results, not just with the Calgary Flames, but many series in the playoffs here. And there was one team in particular that looked like it was running away with it and was favored to be picked to go to the finals and win the Stanley Cup, and they also fell victim to bowing out in the first round too early. And I feel like I'm doing this last episode too early myself here, but I'll do that in a separate video when I go over my bracket here. But the NHL released a second chance bracket here, so I'll do that in a separate video, and I wonder if all the surprises that prompted the but I'm just keep delaying the inevitable here. But it's time to recap the Calgary Flames and the Colorado Avalanche here. Actually, it started off good and looked like things were going to go as planned, and then things went just like snow down the Avalanche. It got faster and faster, and the damage was done. How many more cliches can I throw out here? But anyway, I did want it to wait till the end of the first round league-wide before I do this recap, because then I can talk about how the bracket's looking now for the playoffs. And this was regardless how things turned out. But then, of course, I had some other personal things and work, so I am doing this a little later than I thought, but it was going to happen regardless of the outcome here. So anyway, let's recap the bad news here. But so shall we start here? Coming into the playoffs here, the Calgary Flames were the top seed in the Western Conference and the Pacific Division, so they were the top seed, which meant we got home ice in the first round, and they're theoretically right up until the conference championship, but we drew the second wildcard team, which in this case was the Colorado Avalanche here. And this was the first time ever that in Stanley Cup playoffs that the Flames and Avalanche have met in the playoffs here. So game one, go back on Thursday, April 11th here. It started off here in Calgary at the Scotiabank Saddledome with an 8 p.m. puck drop here. I'd say it was the first ever playoff matchup, and as it was speculated, and if you looked at the Flames going down the stretch here on who was going to be the starting goalie for the Calgary Flames, it was Mike Smith here, and he did definitely got the start here and got the fans chanting Smitty right from the get-go, because he's been playing strong down the stretch here, and he definitely did his part in the series here, regardless how it turned out. But the game one, round one, and the fact that if you go back to the regular season series here, I mean, the Calgary Flames and the Colorado Avalanche played 3 times. Flames won all 3 games, but we were pretty much done with the Avalanche in January there, so that's why I figured it was a tentative start here. Calgary was fairly consistent and strong all season here. While the Avalanche, they looked like Stanley Cup contenders at the start of the year, and then they had their big dip middle of the season, and then they turned it on late going down the stretch, fending off the surging Arizona Coyotes to get that wildcard spot. So the Avalanche were pretty much playing survival just to get in pretty much to the end. It was game 81 where they clinched the playoff spot. As you recall, last year the Avalanche actually knocked off the St. Louis Blues in literally the last game of the season to decide who got that final spot. So, as I say, it was a tentative start in the first period. There was no score in the report. Nothing really stood out here. And then things did open up a bit in the second period in game 1 here. And it wasn't until the 14-minute mark, which I'll attempt to say it here as some people try to correct me, Andrew Mangiapane. I have still struggled saying his name. But he did actually score the first goal in the first game in the series, literally on his knees there, to give Calgary a 1-0 lead. And then Matthew Tkachuk, one of our favorite pests and agitators, who also scored with a minute left in the second period to make it 2-0 for the Calgary Flames here. So it's 2-0 Flames after 2 periods here. So things were looking good. Mike Smith was playing great. And we were figuring out the Colorado Avalanche earlier. So things were looking good. And then the Flames were able to get a lead again and stay that way. I'd say to Mike Smith's strong play. Third period, it stayed 2-0 until Michael Backlund on the power play. It wasn't until the 17-minute mark of the third period there that Michael Backlund scored to make it 3-0 for the Calgary Flames. And then Colorado pulled their goalie, Philip Grubauer, tried to roll the dice early here, and it backfired here, and Matthew Tkachuk scored his second goal of the game in the empty net. And Mike Smith actually got an assist on that play there. So everybody was getting involved here. So eventually the Calgary Flames won game 1, 4-0, and take a 1-0 series lead. And we actually outshot the Colorado Avalanche 32-26 here. As the highlights, Mike Smith got the 26-8 shutout, and Matthew Tkachuk got 2 goals here. And also the note here, this is the first Flames goalie to get a shutout in the series opening game here. So things are all looking good, fine and dandy here for the Calgary Flames after game 1. Got to see a Red celebrating, got the Red mouth started going. We were going to finish off the Avalanche here, right? At least that's what it looked like earlier. So game 2 was on Saturday, April the 13th, and it was an 8:30 puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome here. Obviously, Alex Schneider was going to be the Flames were going to send this thing to Denver, up 2-0, or it was going to be tied up at 1-1 going to Denver here. So anyway, just like the first game, no scoring happened, but Colorado definitely looked like the better team there as they got their game, and it was definitely more physical for both sides here, as that usually happens with playoff series, especially when it's teams that aren't as familiar with each other. I mean, if it was Edmonton or Vancouver playing, heck, first 10 seconds you'll get physical. But, Colorado definitely showed some fight back in this game here. And the second period here, first shorthanded goal, the first shorthanded goal of the series, first goal of Colorado in this series happened about the 7-minute mark as Matt Neto gives Colorado a 1-0 lead, and that was their first goal of the series here because they got shut out in game 1. And it wasn't until the second period, the 7-minute mark, that they got on the board here. So it was 1-0 Colorado. And then 5 minutes later, about the 12-minute mark of the second period, one of our top strong defensemen that's looking like he's got a good future here, Rasmus Anderson, scores his first playoff goal here. So it was 1-1, and that's how the second period ended. 1-1. Tight game, which kind of is what the Flames wanted. The third period, in the first half, Calgary looked like we were the better team, but Colorado did pull back in the second half of the third period here. Actually, with Sean Monahan in the past 12-minute mark of the third period here, gave Calgary a 2-1 lead, and we were hoping to maybe hang on and win the game and send this thing to Denver with a 2-0 series lead here. However, about the 17-minute mark, as I mentioned, the Colorado Avalanche looked like they were the better team in the second half of the third period. It was JT Compher who ties the game up fairly late here to make it 2-2, and as what this game needed, it was 2-2 after 3 periods. It needed some sudden death overtime here, and as in case if you're wondering here, they play a full 20-minute period, 5-on-5, and sudden death means they keep playing until somebody scores. So if it happens 2 seconds in or takes 10 periods, they keep playing until someone scores here. So in overtime here, actually the Calgary Flames did play the Colorado Avalanche here, and also it was aided with an Ian Cole cross-checking penalty that obviously helped Calgary in their arsenal of shots here. However, Colorado was able to kill off the penalty, and at the 8:27-minute mark of the first overtime period, Nathan MacKinnon, one of their top players for the Colorado Avalanche, scores it to give Colorado a 3-2 win and ties the series up at 1-1 here. Calgary outshot Colorado 7-2 in overtime, aided with the penalty that Colorado took. And overall, I mean, it was fairly even. There was a lot more shots in this game. Colorado did outshot the Calgary Flames 39-37 here. And to be honest with you, this, even though it was only game 2, it was an overtime here. That loss kind of gave me that familiar feeling that I've had too many times in the 90s there. It felt deflating as it felt like Calgary, despite not playing their best, still had the chance there to hold on and make it a 2-0 series lead. But instead, this game ends the way it did, and things shift off to Denver, tied at 1-1 here. So let's see what happens in games 3 and 4 here in Denver here. So game 3, this happened on Monday, April the 15th. Now in Denver at the Pepsi Center, 8 p.m. puck drop here. And one player to note here is defenseman Kyle McCarr, who recently graduated from UMass Amherst, and he actually won the Hobey Baker Award, which is awarded to the top American College Player of the Year, and that's the same award that Johnny Gaudreau won. But another thing to mention here is he actually signed his NHL contract with the Colorado Avalanche just before that game. But many things to note here is that he actually was born right here in Calgary. He grew up as a Flames fan, and he was drafted 4th overall by the Colorado Avalanche in 2017. So that's something to note there. I mean, you just finished college and get to sign your first NHL contract with the team that drafted you, and you have to be playing against your childhood favorite team. So it's definitely a thrill there. And the reason why I mention is that you'll be hearing this guy's name a few times here in this video here. So anyway, as Kyle McCarr, the Calgarian, gets signed up with the Colorado Avalanche and gets thrown in action here in game 3 here. And how this game started wasn't pretty, because Calgary got into penalty trouble in the first period, and Nathan MacKinnon, it was only the beginning of the Nathan MacKinnon show, as he scored the overtime winner in game 2. He actually continues to terrorize the Flames by scoring the first 2 goals at the 8 and 13-minute mark of the first period there, and on the power play as well. And then Nathan MacKinnon, at the 16-minute mark, actually sets up Kyle McCarr, the Calgarian defenseman who's playing in his first NHL game, scores his first ever NHL goal. So it was 3-0 Colorado after the first period there. Definitely not a great start here for the Calgary Flames, trying to make amends from game 2 and trying to take away home ice from the Colorado Avalanche here. Unfortunately, the ugliness continues in the second period as on the St. Sven Avigato penalty. First, Matt Nieto for the Colorado Avalanche, who scored the first goal in game 2, made it 4-0. While Sam Bennett actually scored the power play on that same penalty, puts Calgary on the board to make it 4-1 just after the 8.5-minute mark. And, maybe that could wake up the Flames and give us some hope. I was just dreaming there, because just before the 13-minute mark, another one of Colorado's top young players, Mikko Rantanen, scores to make it 5-1, and that's how things were after the second period. It was 5-1 Colorado Avalanche after 2 periods here. Third period featured 2 quick goals here in the first minute here. First, Eric Johnson scored at the 54-second mark, and then TJ Brody for the Flames scored 15 seconds later, to make it 6-2 for Colorado, and that is how it ended. It was 6-2 for the Colorado Avalanche. Now they're the ones up front, 2-1 with the series in Denver here. So now I'm going to say they got the home ice advantage here. Other sidelines to note here is frustrations came in the third period as the game was out of hand here, with lots of roughing penalties and misconduct dished out. Sam Bennett for the Flames and Matt Calvert for the Colorado Avalanche past the 7-minute mark. Got coincidental minors here. And Matthew Tkachuk definitely got a roughing penalty against Gabriel Landeskog, another young player for the Colorado Avalanche that definitely made an impact in the series at the 11-minute mark. And then Nikita Zaharoff took a misconduct against Garden Hathaway at the 15-minute mark. And if the 6-2 score wasn't ugly enough for the Calgary Flames here, Colorado outshot the Calgary Flames 56-29. Yeah, I said that right. 56-29. How are you going to win games when you allow over 50 shots a game? Mike Smith needed to make 50 saves. He played strong, despite the fact our defense definitely wasn't there. Highlight this game, well, Nathan MacKinnon, 2 goals and assists. Matt Nieto and Mikko Rantanen had a goal and assist each. And that's how game 3 ended. It was an ugly 6-2 loss for the Calgary Flames and allowed way too many shots here. So the Flames definitely need to start taking notice here to get back in the series here, because I definitely felt they were in trouble after game 3 here. So game 4, this happened 2 nights later, Wednesday, April the 17th, 8 p.m. puck drop at the Pepsi Center. And there's 2 choices here. Either send this thing back to Calgary tied up at 2-2, or we're going to be facing elimination down 3-1 here. And we'll see how the Flames respond after the beatdown in game 3 here. And one thing to note here is that, Cali Makar made his NHL debut for the Colorado Avalanche. Well, Calgary made its own young defenseman made his debut here. Is actually Yusuf Valimaki actually drew in the lineup. Oscar Vandenberg drew out. So Yusuf Valimaki, the guy that we drafted in 2017, 15th overall here, he makes his NHL debut in the Stanley Cup Playoffs here. So we'll see if that's the boost that the Flames could get. As Yusuf Valimaki, despite his injuries here, he's looked great in the Flames so far in his first season in the NHL here. So first period had actions on both sides, but no scoring. It was definitely not as well as it was in game 3 for Colorado. Mike Smith, who continued his strong play, but so did Phil Grubauer for the Colorado Avalanche. That was one of the questions coming into the series, is how Phil Grubauer is going to play, considering he struggled the first 2 games against the Columbus Blue Jackets when he played for the Washington Capitals in games 1 and 2, and then Braden Holtby took over and led them to the Stanley Cup here. But Phil Grubauer definitely looked ready now and from prime time. And actually, it was no scoring after the first period there. Second period, first on the power play, past the 3-minute mark, Elias Lindholm scores to give Calgary a 1-0 lead. And it stayed actually 1-0 for the Flames after 2 periods here. But the one thing to still note here is that Colorado was definitely still peppering the Flames with shots here, because after 2 periods, it gives you an idea how wide open it was. It was a 1-0 game, but the Colorado Avalanche, after 2 periods, outshot the Flames 32-25 here. Third period, actually things were looking better for the Flames on the score, as Derek Ryan scored just before the 7-minute mark to give Calgary a 2-0 lead here. So maybe it was looking like, we'll hang on here and send this thing back to Calgary tied at 2 and make it a best of 3 with Calgary having home ice. However, things started going off the rails once again here. Kind of similar to game 2 here. And once again, JT Compher scores a minute later after Derek Ryan scored. to make it 2-1 game here. And then it stayed that way until late in the third period. Sounding very familiar to Game 2 here. Well, Mikko Rantanen scored the tying goal at the 17-minute mark to make it a 2-2 game. And once again, just like Game 2, overtime was needed here. And in overtime here, it was definitely back and forth for both teams here, as both teams had their chances here. Calgary had a great chance in overtime when Ian Cole took a delay penalty again. So Ian Cole got in the penalty trouble in overtime. But however, Colorado, just like Game 2, was able to kill it off here. And at the 10:23 mark of the overtime period, Mikko Rantanen scores again to give Colorado a 3-2 win in overtime. And now this time the Colorado Avalanche took home ice and won both games on home ice to take a 3-1 series lead, send this thing back to Calgary where Colorado could potentially eliminate the Calgary Flames on home ice here. So suddenly, after things are looking good after Game 1, Colorado has won 3 straight and now have a 3-1 series lead here. So the Flames are definitely in trouble here, as I say. I know that the fourth win is always the hardest one to win, but based on what I was seeing up to this point here, nothing was getting me encouraged here. And once again, when you look at the shots here, well, Colorado actually outshot Calgary in overtime, but it was 6-5. But overall, it was 52-37. And Mike Smith, once again, he was busy, but like a towel, he was left out to dry here. He was peppered more like a peppercorn steak here. So Mike Smith, I mean, despite the up and down season he's had, he actually had a strong series, all things considered here. So the highlight here is Mikko Rantanen had 2 goals in this series. And this leads up to Game 5 here on Friday, April 19th. Series shifts back to Calgary. Scotiabank Cell, 8 p.m. puck drop. Colorado up 3-1. Pretty much Calgary has to win all 3 games or it's bye-bye. And as you can tell by the opening there, they did not win all 3 games. But could they at least stave off elimination no longer here? Before the game here, one big thing to note here is that the Flames actually scratched James Neal and brought in Austin Czarnik here, because I didn't mention James Neal yet in the series up until now, and it was because he got scratched. As like most of the team here, he definitely struggled all season, and James Neal, I think he only had like 7 shots and a -1 in the 4 games there. Not necessarily what we spent big bucks for him for, because we were looking at him for playoff leadership, but you know, this was definitely a rough playoff for the Calgary Flames here, as we'll find out here. So Colorado definitely had an early jump here. It looked like they wanted to finish this off. And about the midway mark of the first period here, Gabriel Landeskog scores to make it, and that was his 4th of the playoffs, by the way. Mikko Rantanen scored his 4th just past the 15-minute mark. So you got Gabriel Landeskog opens the scoring, and then Mikko Rantanen at the 15-minute mark made it 2-0 for the Colorado Avalanche. And just before the Mikko Rantanen goal, though, things could have gotten tied up because Johnny Gaudreau was awarded the penalty shot, but Derek Grubauer stopped him on that. So there was one potential moment that could have changed the course of the game, but the Flames were able to get on the board when TJ Brodie scored with literally 6 seconds left on the clock to make it 2-1, and it was 2-1 Colorado after Game 1 here. So still not ideal, but still somewhat in the game here. But this was definitely the start of the frustrations for the Calgary Flames here, because the second period was definitely another frustrating one for the Flames here. First, Colin Wilson, he decided to join the scoring party as he scored at the 7-minute mark to make it 3-1 for the Colorado Avalanche. And then a couple minutes later, controversy brewed, because a couple minutes later, Johnny Gaudreau scored the goal to make it 3-2, or it looked like Johnny Gaudreau scored a couple minutes later, about midway through the second period, to make it 3-2 here, but immediately the referees waved it off because of goaltender interference. So obviously Bill Peters, our coach, decided to challenge that, and we lost the challenge. And I mean, I don't know if you call me biased here, but I mean, there has been some questionable calls, especially a goaltender interference and some penalties here in the first round here. But to me, it looked like that the Colorado defender interfered with Philip Grubauer a lot more than the Flames here. So that wiped out the goal, and it was still 3-1 Colorado halfway through the second period here. Kind of been the microcosm of the Flames this whole series here, as you know, things were not going their way, and then when it looked like they were going to get a break here, they did not get a break here. And then, unfortunately, that wasn't meant to be here. So it still was 3-1 Colorado at the second period here. And then Colin Wilson strikes again for the Colorado Avalanche at the 15-minute mark to make it 4-1 Colorado, and that's how the second period ended. It was 4-1 Colorado, and it looked like it was almost all but done for the Calgary Flames. That definitely got clinched big time, as Mika Rantanen scores fifth at the 57-second mark on the power play to make it a 5-1 game here, and pretty much put the writing on the wall here that Calgary Flames are going to be eliminated in 5 games, and the Colorado Avalanche were going to move on to either take on the San Jose Sharks or the Vegas Golden Knights here. And pretty much after that goal there, I mean, there wasn't really much else to say in this game because it was 5-1 for Colorado, and eventually the Avalanche won 5-1 and took the best of 7 series, 4-1 there. So things did start off good for the Calgary Flames here, but then unfortunately, just like snow off an avalanche, it just went down south and it built it up big time here. So unfortunately, the Calgary Flames were eliminated in 5 games by the Colorado Avalanche, although this time Calgary had a little better defensive game as the Colorado Avalanche outshot the Calgary Flames only 32-29 in this one. Like I say, Colin Wilson and Mika Rantanen definitely did a number on the Flames by each having 2 goals and assists in this game. Led the way, and then Nathan McKinnon and Tyson Barrie each had 3 assists as well. So all the key players for the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, I know it's cliche, your best players have to be your best players, but that was definitely the case for the Colorado Avalanche. Plus throw in Philip Grubauer with a .939 save percentage in the series, and 190 goals against average, a 4-on record. But there wasn't too much mention about Johnny Gaudreau or Sean Monahan, and the 2 goals that Matthew Tkachuk scored was both in Game 1 here. And oh yeah, Cali Makar played his first game in Calgary, also had an assist in this one. So that's what I say. Unfortunately, the Colorado Avalanche got the better. They were the better team overall in the series. They got the time of the offense by obviously Nathan McKinnon, Mika Rantanen, and Gabriel Landeskog contributed here and there. And you know, Colin Wilson, he had a big game in the elimination game, and Philip Grubauer outdueled Mike Smith there, but Mike Smith, I mean, he definitely played great for the Calgary Flames, all things considered. Funny, that was the biggest question mark coming into the series was, does the Flames have the goaltending? But that wasn't our Achilles heel. I mean, I think our Achilles heel was the fact that we didn't step on the gas and revved it up anymore. We looked like the same team that we did in the regular season, which is good, but in the playoffs, you got to rev it up here, and that seems to be sometimes an issue here with the Calgary Flames. But that being said, I mean, my closing remarks here, I mean, overall, I still say this was a great season, and it was fun recapping the Calgary Flames throughout the season there, and it did seem a little lofty, and then I still go back to episode 7 there when I started throwing out the question, are the Calgary Flames Stanley Cup contenders? Is it time to consider us Stanley Cup contenders? I still say this team, this core is going in the right direction here, but you know, maybe sometimes that old lesson of you need to learn to lose before we win here, because for a lot of our core, I mean, some of them have playoff experience. I mean, I know Gaudreau and Monahan both were on the team in since 2013 and 14 there, where they were on that team where the Flames went to the second round in 2015, and even young guys like Matt Tkachuk, he was on the team where we had that brief cameo against the Anaheim Ducks 2 years ago. But the thing is, this definitely feels different and a lot more heartbreak this time around than 2 years ago, because for the first time in 13 years, Calgary won the division. First time in 29 years, we had a top record in the Western Conference, or the conference that we're in. And then the only other time other than the year we won the Stanley Cup, we won 50 games in the regular season here. So it's been a while since the Flames were a lot favorited to come in, but unfortunately, since getting the glory in 1989 and winning the Stanley Cup, Calgary has only made the playoffs 14 times, so it means we missed 15. 1 year was wiped out to a lockout here. But of those 14 times that we've made the playoffs here, we've only gotten out of the first round twice. And that still definitely contributes to my heartbreak for growing up following this team. I mean, we got out of the first round obviously in 2004, and that was an emotional series against the Vancouver Canucks. And next thing you know, we were playing for the Stanley Cup. And then in 2015, once again, we had another emotional first round against the Vancouver Canucks. And, got to play the Ducks, and we were a mismatch. And we actually were able to pull the win, at least in that series. But, there's definitely some other teams you can look around that had some hard luck in the playoffs too. But, it's hard to say. But the other big thing with the Calgary Flames, with my closing remarks here, is the fact that, I still feel like we're going in the right direction here. But the big one, is what's going to happen next year. Because the big challenge is going to be now is in 2015, we made the playoffs after we did a nuclear rebuild in 2013 and 14, where we decided it was time to trade Jarome Iginla, trade away Jay Billmeister, and then moved on with some other veterans. And then, you can question the decision, did we get enough return for it? But then decisions were made, and then we had a rebuilding season, but had a hard-working team, and then we brought in Brad Trelevin as general manager in the offseason 2014, and since then, we've made the playoffs 3 out of 5 years. But we made the playoffs in 2015, and then we regressed and missed it in 2016, and then we decided to bring in Glenn Gultson as head coach, and then we got back into the playoffs in 2017, and then we got swept, and then in 2018 we really regressed, especially in the last third of the season, and missed the playoffs, and then we decided to bring in Bill Peters, who I still think we have the right guy to, continue building this team and lead us through. And then 2019, we got the playoffs, but, did we also peak too soon, or did we exceed expectations? But that's going to be the big question for this going ahead here is how are we going to make the playoffs next year? I'm going to say this, that it would be crazy to suggest we'll win the Western Conference in the regular season again next year, considering parity, because I'll go over the rest of the bracket here, and the fine line between winning and losing is like this big during the playoffs, while the season is a little bigger, a little wider there. But we'll see what happens here. If I'm going to make some bold predictions here in the offseason, I don't think we're going to be having as many changes in the offseason, because I like our coaching staff. I don't see any changes in our management here, and I still think there might be possibly some big trades here. If you read the rumor wire, I think Michael Frolik is probably going to be on his way out. Apparently he was almost traded for Jason Zucker in a draft pick at the deadline, and who knows, maybe that trade could get revisited. But I also might make a bold prediction that possibly TJ Brody, because he had a tough series against Colorado, a lot of players have, but I think Rasmus Anderson and his play has made potentially TJ Brody expendable. And then another guy that's kind of been the favorite whipping boy this season is James Neal, but rightfully so, because he signed that big $5.75 million contract for the next 5 seasons, and we just gone through the first season here, and he has all the playoff experience, including, he won't experience being on the wrong end of the Stanley Cup Finals this year, but he's been to the finals, the previous 2 seasons, and has over 100 games playoff experience here. But it kind of also says volumes too of his play. If in the elimination game at home, he was scratched by in favor of Austin Zarnik, who was one of those depth forwards that we signed in the off season, who played in his first playoff game here. But you got to remember too, he has 4 more years left at $5.75 million, and I did some rough math here that he still owed $23 million. So you take, if you were to buy him out, you take 2/3 of that, what's remaining on his term, and you spread that out over double the term. So I did some rough math, and if we were to theoretically buy out James Neal, we would be paying $1.93 million for the next 8 seasons for not having him on the team. So I still think James Neal, we're still going to be stuck with him for next year, but, maybe he'll rebound. But, we'll see what happens here. But, this will definitely be my last Flames recap video, and if any big off-season news happens in the off-season, well, I'll make some videos on there if we make any big trades, like Dougie Hamilton-ish trade, or I'll recap what we did in the draft here. But, that's where we look in the off-season here, is maybe there might be some big decisions or some small decisions to make, but I still expect all our coaching staff and management staff to still be together here, because we're still a young team, and I still think the window for claiming glory is still, wide open, and in fact opening here. But as disappointing as it was for the Calgary Flames to get knocked out by the Colorado Avalanche here, this whole first round was surprising here. Because who did the Colorado Avalanche get to draw here? Well, actually, the other series in the Pacific Division here, the San Jose Sharks actually knocked out the Vegas Golden Knights in 7 games. So the Colorado Avalanche will get to play the San Jose Sharks here. I looked at that series with the Sharks and Golden Knights here. It was definitely anyone's series here, but for Colorado, they got what they wanted. It was a rough series and went to 7 games there. Yeah, there was that controversial call there in that series that San Jose benefited, but San Jose got called a penalty in Game 6 there too. So Colorado will get to play San Jose in the Western Conference semifinal there. Now, if you look at the Central Division here, well, the division-winning Central Division leaders, the Nashville Predators, took on the first wild card, the Dallas Stars, and actually the Dallas Stars knocked off the Nashville Predators in 6 games there. And then the other matchup, the 2-3 matchup, actually the St. Louis Blues, the 3rd seed, knocked off the Winnipeg Jets, also in 6 games. So in the other series in the Western Conference semifinal there, you got the St. Louis Blues hosting the Dallas Stars there. So you got 2 division winners were knocked out. Although the biggest surprise is if you go look east there. If you go to the Atlantic Division here, who the heck saw this coming? We had the Tampa Bay Lightning, who were first overall in the league, first in everything. They drew the Columbus Blue Jackets, the second wildcard team, and the Columbus Blue Jackets swept the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who the heck saw that coming? As bad as it was that the Flames lost to 5 to the Colorado Avalanche, the Tampa Bay Lightning got swept by the Columbus. And it was in spectacular fashion, too. Of course, I don't feel sad for the Tampa Bay Lightning as a Flames fan. They've hit my hit list of teams I dislike since June 2004, so it was kind of hilarious to see that. So, but that busted my bracket. If you look at my bracket video there, and maybe that's what prompted the NHL to do a second chance bracket video, and I'll do one after this video here, but that was surprising. The Columbus Blue Jackets swept the Tampa Bay Lightning there. So who did the Columbus Blue Jackets play? Well, the 2-3 matchup, you had the Boston Bruins taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs in the other Atlantic Series, and once again, the Boston Bruins knocked out the Toronto Maple Leafs once again in 7 games. So that was the only series for the record that actually got right. But, it was definitely a heartbreak for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and with the Calgary Flames and the Winnipeg Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs not making it out of the first round in the Stanley Cup Playoffs, there is no Canadian team will be in the running to hoist the Stanley Cup for 25th season here. So the Boston Bruins will be hosting the Columbus Blue Jackets. Surprising. It's still surprising to say that. Anyway, so I also mentioned Calgary, Nashville, and Tampa Bay. 3 division winners out in the first round here. So now we get to the metropolitan part of the bracket here. You had the division-winning Washington Capitals taking on the Carolina Hurricanes from the first wild card. And that series was a homer series for first 6 games, where the Washington Capitals won the first 2 games. Then the Carolina Hurricanes won the next 2 games. Then the Washington Capitals won big in Game 5 and looked like, what's going to happen in Game 6? But then Game 6, the Carolina Hurricanes tied it up. And the Carolina Hurricanes, those bunch of jerks as they are, as they said, or Don Cherry said, knocked off the Washington Capitals in 7 games in double overtime here. So all 4 division winners were knocked out in the first round, and the top 2 conference leaders were knocked out in the first round there. And they said that was the first time since 1967 that both conference leaders and division leaders all knocked out in the first round there. So now the Carolina Hurricanes were either going to take on the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins there, the 2-3 matchup. You had the New York Islanders taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins there, and I'm going to state this is a surprise too, but the New York Islanders, despite being the higher seed, they swept the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's surprising because I wasn't going to bet against Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Murray. That's why I picked Pittsburgh in that bracket, but I wasn't going to bet against them in the playoffs against the fairly young and inexperienced New York Islanders team, which no one thought they were going to make the playoffs at all, especially when they barely made the playoffs with John Tavares and John Tavares going to Toronto here. But yeah, so now you got the New York Islanders taking on the Carolina Hurricanes there. And the other thing you could say about going back to the Carolina Hurricanes and bucket jerks there, they robbed us of the obvious storyline that if the Washington Capitals would have won, the obvious storyline would have been Barry Trotz facing the Washington Capitals in the playoffs the year after he led the Washington Capitals to win the Stanley Cup, because now he's in New York. So yeah, that was definitely a surprise first round bracket buster there. If you go back to the other video, but I only had one pick right. It was the Boston over Toronto. Other than that, my bracket was gonzo. Anyway, the last thing I want to say here for individual awards here that the Flames could still salvage from the season here is that Mark Giordano actually is up for the Norris Trophy, and he's up there with Victor Hedman of the Tampa Bay Lightning and Brent Burns of the San Jose Sharks. I actually do like Mark Giordano's chances of taking home the Norris Trophy, because a lot of the media also said that. And Sean Monahan, he's actually up for the Lady Byng Trophy, as that's for the most gentlemanly player. And he actually only had 12 penalty minutes, but I think he might be in harder to win that trophy, because you got Sean Monahan is up with Ryan O'Reilly of the St. Louis Blues, but the one player that I think will probably win it is Alexander Sasha Barkov of the Florida Panthers there. So we have a couple Flames that are up for finalists in awards here. But surprisingly, Bill Peters, who wasn't even nominated for Jack Adams for Coach of the Year. I mean, everyone thinks Barry Trotz is going to win it for the New York Islanders, but they actually named the finalists just before I recorded it. But Barry Trotz is up with John Cooper of the Tampa Bay Lightning and former Flame Craig Berube, the coach of the St. Louis Blues there. So those are just the awards here for the Flames here. But anyway, I'm going to still say, I mean, sadly, this is the last My Calgary Flames video for Season 1 here. I mean, I say thanks for watching. Thanks for following along here. And it's been fun recapping here. And coincidentally, this had 17 episodes, but so did the Calgary Hitmen. When I do my, if you follow my Hitmen series, the only difference is that the Hitmen actually got to the second round of the playoffs and have a shorter season here. So, I mean, I think the Hitmen overall may have had a little better season because they made the playoffs and got farther. But, you know, I still say the future is bright for the Calgary Flames. And, you know, unless I say otherwise and channel updates or any other videos in the future here, See you in the off season when I chime in with any big news. If the Flames make any monumental trades here that could change any franchises here, and I'll chime in with draft news and what we do in Free Agent Frenzy and anything else we do in the off season. But other than that, stay tuned till September when I'll come back for season 2 and might do the same format I've done or maybe change things up. But stay tuned to that, and I'll say thank you very much, and best of luck to everyone else that's still in the Stanley Cup Playoffs here. I mean, I don't have a team to cheer for or against either way. I just hope that maybe the Stanley Cup Playoffs will continue to be wacky as it has been in the first round, and who knows, maybe we'll have a Columbus and Colorado will meet in the Stanley Cup final, have both wildcard 2 teams. Who knows? It's the way this playoffs has been. The most unlikely matchup that will happen for the Stanley Cup final, as opposed to this guy saying it was going to be Calgary or Tampa Bay, or 50% of entries. Apparently NHL.com had Tampa Bay going to the finals and win the cup here. Yeah, they only had 62 wins this season. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching along, and I'll see you in the next video. And wish there was more, but it will just make it that much sweeter if we ever do win the Stanley Cup again, and it'd be nice if it ever happens, and I'll actually be old enough to appreciate it. So thank you, and go Flames go, and I'll see you in the next video, and I'll see you next season for season 2 here.